Have you ever tried to relax, but couldn't? You stop, you sit down, you try to rest, and even so, something inside you stays active. It is not intense anxiety. It is not fear. It is not panic. It is simply a persistent sense of alertness, as if the body never fully switches off. This experience is more common than it seems. Many people believe they cannot relax. They believe they are doing something wrong. They believe they lack discipline, or that there is some personal problem. But there is a possibility that almost no one considers. Perhaps your system never learned how to relax. That is the first important idea. Relaxation is not automatic. Relaxation is a skill, a physiological skill, a skill that needs to be learned, and learned over time. Now think about something simple. No one is born knowing how to drive. No one is born knowing how to swim. No one is born knowing how to play an instrument. These skills are developed through experience, through repetition, through safety, through stability. The same thing happens with relaxation. The nervous system learns to relax when it encounters safe conditions, when there is predictability, when there is stability, when there is enough time to slow down. Without those conditions, the system remains active. It remains attentive. It remains prepared. An important detail is the role of childhood and early experiences. The brain learns by observing the environment. It learns from the rhythm of life. It learns from the responses of the people around it. If the environment was unstable, if the environment was unpredictable, if the environment required constant attention, the system learns vigilance. It learns readiness. It learns alertness. This learning does not happen consciously. It happens automatically. The body records, the system stores, the brain adapts. Over time, that pattern becomes normal. Normal to remain attentive, normal to remain alert, normal to remain ready. Now imagine growing up in an environment where relaxing was not safe, where it was necessary to stay prepared, where it was necessary to respond quickly, where it was necessary to avoid mistakes. The system learns that switching off is risky. It learns that resting is dangerous. It learns that relaxing may have consequences. That learning creates a pattern of activation, a pattern of vigilance, a pattern of tension. That pattern can continue even when life changes, even when the environment becomes safe, even when conditions improve, because the body keeps what it learned. An important point to understand is that the nervous system does not respond only to the present. It responds to history. It responds to what has been repeated. It responds to what was necessary in the past. If for a long time it was necessary to remain attentive, the body learns to remain attentive. If for a long time it was necessary to react quickly, the body learns to react quickly. If for a long time it was necessary to control emotions, the body learns to maintain tension. That learning does not disappear on its own. It needs to be replaced. It needs to be retrained. It needs to be updated. Now notice something interesting. Some people feel uncomfortable when everything is calm. They feel restless. They feel tension. They feel the need to do something, as if silence were strange, as if tranquility were uncomfortable. That happens because the system is used to activity, used to movement, used to alertness. When activity decreases, discomfort appears, not because there is danger, but because there is novelty. The system does not recognize that state. It does not know how to function at that pace. Another common experience appears during rest. You try to relax, but the mind keeps working, reviewing situations, planning tasks, anticipating problems. That movement does not happen by choice. It happens by habit, a habit of vigilance, a habit of preparation, a habit of control. Now consider a simple question. When was the last time you truly felt relaxed? Not just still, not just resting, but deeply calm, without tension, without alertness, without the need to monitor. For many people, that experience is rare, not because there is no time, but because the system does not recognize the state of relaxation. Another important point is the role of predictability. The brain relaxes when it can predict what will happen, when there is stability, when there is safe repetition, when there is trust in the environment. Without predictability, the system remains active. It keeps evaluating, it keeps monitoring, it keeps preparing. That prolonged state consumes energy, and limited energy creates fatigue. Now think about something that happens often. You finish an intense period, a difficult week, a demanding project, a stressful phase. Then the pressure decreases, but the body remains tense, remains alert, remains tired. That happens because the system is still operating in the previous mode, still prepared, still vigilant, still active, even when it is no longer necessary. Another important detail is the difference between stopping and relaxing. Stopping means interrupting activity. Relaxing means reducing activation. You can stop and still remain tense. You can sit and still remain alert. You can lie down and still remain active. That difference explains why many people rest, but do not recover. Now observe the impact of this on sleep. The body needs to reduce activation to enter deep sleep. If the system remains alert, sleep becomes shallow, fragmented, restless, poorly restorative. That explains why some people sleep many hours, but wake up tired, because the system never fully switched off. Another relevant pattern appears in daily routine. Some people find it difficult to slow down. They feel a constant need to do something, answer messages, organize tasks, resolve pending issues. Even when there is no urgency, that behavior is not lack of rest. It is difficulty with deactivation. Now take a moment to reflect on something important. The body learns through repetition. If the system spends a long time in alert, it learns alertness. If it spends a long time in tension, it learns tension. If it spends a long time in activity, it learns activity. And what is learned becomes automatic. And what becomes automatic begins to happen without conscious effort, without decision, without intention, without clear awareness. The body simply repeats the pattern it learned. This is an essential point for understanding why relaxing can feel so difficult. Not because you do not want to, not because you are not trying, but because the system continues functioning the way it was trained. Now think about something simple. If someone spends years driving on a busy road, full of risks and rapid changes, the body learns to maintain high attention. It learns to react quickly. It learns to monitor the environment. If suddenly, that person enters an empty and quiet road, the body does not relax immediately. It remains attentive. It remains prepared. It remains monitoring, not out of necessity, but out of habit. The same thing happens with the nervous system. It maintains the pattern it learned. Even when the environment has changed, even when pressure has decreased, even when danger has disappeared. But there is something important to recognize. Relaxation is not simply the absence of activity. Relaxation is an active state of the body, a state in which the system reduces vigilance, reduces muscle tension, reduces internal effort, allows recovery. This state needs to be experienced repeatedly in order to become familiar. Without repetition, the body does not recognize it. Without recognition, the body does not trust it. Without trust, the body does not relax. Another phenomenon that deserves attention is the feeling of restlessness during rest. Some people feel uncomfortable when they are not doing anything. They feel the need to move, to check something, to complete some task, to fill the silence. That discomfort is not laziness. It is not lack of discipline. It is persistent activation. The system continues waiting for stimulation, continues waiting for demand, continues waiting for action. When that action does not appear, tension emerges. Now consider a detail that often goes unnoticed. The body associates relaxation with safety. If the system does not perceive safety, it does not reduce activation, even if the environment is calm, even if there is no real risk, even if everything is under control. The internal perception continues to say, stay attentive, stay prepared, stay vigilant. That prolonged state creates wear, a quiet wear, a progressive wear, a wear that shows up as persistent fatigue. You may have noticed something like this. You try to rest, but the mind remains active. You try to slow down, but the body remains tense. You try to sleep, but sleep does not deepen. These signals do not indicate failure, they indicate learning. Learning of vigilance, learning of readiness, learning of alertness. Now notice the role of predictability in building relaxation. The brain relaxes when it can predict the environment, when it understands what is going to happen, when it perceives stability. Without predictability, the system remains active. It keeps evaluating, it keeps monitoring, it keeps preparing. This functioning requires energy, and limited energy creates fatigue. Now observe how time influences this process. If the system remains in alert for a long time, activation becomes the default. A pattern that feels normal, a pattern that feels inevitable, a pattern that feels like part of your personality. But it is not personality. It is adaptation. It is a learned response. Another relevant detail is the impact of this pattern on well-being. When the body remains in alert, recovery decreases. When recovery decreases, fatigue increases. When fatigue increases, energy decreases. This cycle repeats, day after day, week after week, until a persistent sensation appears, a sensation of constant wear, a sensation of limited energy, a sensation that relaxation never fully happens. Now consider the role of silence. Silence should make rest easier. But for a system used to activity, silence can increase vigilance. Without external stimulation, the mind turns inward. It begins reviewing thoughts. It begins monitoring sensations. It begins searching for signals. That movement keeps activation alive, and continuous activation prevents recovery. Another common pattern appears in daily routine. Some people find it difficult to remain in moments of pause. They feel a constant need to fill time, answer messages, organize tasks, check notifications. Even when there is no urgency, that behavior does not mean lack of rest. It means difficulty with deactivation. Now reflect on something important. The body does not distinguish between intention and condition. You may want to relax. You may decide to rest. You may try to slow down. But if the system does not perceive safety, it will not reduce activation. This mechanism is automatic, and automatic means outside conscious control. Another essential point is the relationship between trust and relaxation. The body relaxes when it trusts. Trust in the environment, trust in people, trust in predictability, trust in stability. Without trust, vigilance remains, and prolonged vigilance creates fatigue. Now think about something that happens frequently. You finish the day tired, but when you try to rest, the mind remains active. It keeps planning, it keeps organizing, it keeps anticipating. That behavior does not happen by choice. It happens by habit, a habit built over time. Another relevant detail is the impact of repetition. The longer the system remains in alert, the easier it becomes to remain in alert. The brain learns the pattern, learns the rhythm, learns the state. That learning creates internal stability, even if that stability is tension. Now observe the impact of this on energy. Maintaining vigilance requires resources. Maintaining tension requires energy. Maintaining attention requires effort. When that effort continues for too long, wear appears, and that wear shows up as persistent fatigue. Now we arrive at an important understanding. You did not fail to relax. You did not lose the ability to rest. You did not do something wrong. What happened is different. Your system learned to remain active, learned to remain attentive, learned to remain prepared. That learning was useful at some point. It was necessary. It was adaptive. But it can continue even when it is no longer necessary. And that explains why relaxing feels difficult. Not because you do not want to, but because the system never learned how to switch off. And that understanding leads us to the next step in this conversation. If the body remains active, if the mind keeps working, if rest never feels complete, then a new question naturally appears. Why does the brain keep functioning late into the night? Why does the mind remain active even after the day is over? That is exactly the question we are going to explore next. Why your brain keeps working even when you try to rest.